Welcome to the Table Podcast series with Bridget Johnson. Each month, we give you game-changing conversations about K-12 education and leadership. Join us as top educators, field experts, and administrators share actionable strategies to transform your school community. Let's dive in.
Welcome to The Table, formerly known as the Dean's Roundtable Podcast. Though the name has changed, the mission stays the same. Creating a space where student-like professionals, educators, and change makers come together to share stories, insights, and ideas for building communities where everyone belongs. I'm your host, Bridget Johnson, founder of the Dean's Roundtable and longtime student life professional. Each episode, we'll hear from people doing the hard, hopeful work of creating more just, compassionate, and restorative communities. So pull up a chair and let's get started. Today, I'm especially excited to welcome Tim Hightower. Tim was a student of mine back at Episcopal High School, and we even trained together at some times. We've stayed close all these years, and now in his late 30s, Tim brings such a powerful perspective on resilience, purpose, and leadership. He's a former NFL running back who scored the game-winning touchdown that sent the Arizona Cardinals to their first ever Super Bowl, battled back from a devastating injury to return to the league, and later earned the Ed Block Courage Award for his perseverance. These days, he serves as a senior director of alumni relations for the Washington Commanders and is the author of A Dream Worth Fighting For, and somehow still finds time to raise 4 kids and run his own leadership ventures, including a new flag football league. So happy to have Tim here today with us. Tim, how you doing? Welcome.
I'm doing great. It's always good to talk to you, but it's especially good to talk to you in this setting. So looking forward to it.
Super excited to have you here today. So we go way back. It's been such a gift to watch your journey unfold. So let's start there. Looking back, what relationships or lessons from high school still shape the way you move through the world today?
Yeah, well, I mean, we can start with the athletics, just because sports has been so much a part of my life. I mean, look, I remember cramping up and being on that track with you, right? And the time that we had it's the discipline and the work ethic and the workouts, right? Like getting yourself knowing is one part to like knowing you have a workout, right? Preparing yourself for something that is going to be difficult and it's going to be challenging. I think that's one part of it. But then two, for me, what I remember in high school is in particular, my senior year really stuck out. The first few years, it was more so kind of figuring out who was I, where was I going, what I wanted to do, and just kind of trying to figure out my space and in the world. And senior year, I knew that this was the last year. This was all I had left. And so heading into that summer and then facing the adversity that I faced with being injured and not being all the way 100%, having to work through and figure out how can I be productive without being at 100%.
Right.
Because, I mean, I didn't know that would serve me later on in life where you're never going to feel like you've got energy, or you've got kids pulling all over the place, or jobs change, like figuring out how to still be productive while not being at your best. And so I think those are some of the things that immediately stick out to me.
So I'm going to roll it back even a little bit further and talk about like how you got to Episcopal and kind of what was the game changer for you there, and what was your experience like when you first got there?
Yeah, well, I got to credit my parents first off. My mother was my parents, they believed in education. They didn't come from a strong background of education. So that was something that they really provide us. And while they couldn't always control the zip code of where we lived and they couldn't always control the conditions, one thing or a few things they could control was they kept us together and family. They kept our family together irrespective of where we were. They kept us like grounded in faith. We always went to church. There was some kind of church community. And then education. They stressed education and academics. And my mother was one that she knew I loved football and sports, but if those grades weren't right, or if there was something that if I forgot where the priorities were, missing Saturday games or missing a Sunday championship because of church, she was that mom. And I didn't understand it then, and I fought it then, but I appreciate it. So that was something she was always trying to find a better opportunity and situation for us. And when we moved to Maryland, we moved around a few times, born in California, spent some time in Oklahoma. But by the time we got to Maryland, my mother was just looking for opportunities. And so PG County, Maryland, the public school system there. And she just wanted more. She knew she wanted more for her kids. And so that led her down a search of just looking at different opportunities, which eventually led us to Episcopal and led us to the open house that you were so gracious to host with Miss Diane Jones, and the change of trajectory of, for sure, myself and my sister's life.
Awesome. So let's fast forward a bit. So during your NFL career, what role did relationships with teammates, coaches, family, or mentors play in helping you navigate such a high pressured environment?
Oh man. Well, I'll start with the coach Maurice Carthon, who drafted me from the Arizona Cardinals, and he was the first one at my pro day. He was there at 7:30 in the morning, and I think the pro day wasn't supposed to start until I think 10 o'clock or something like that. And I get this call from our head trainer that says, "Hey, this coach from the Cardinals is here." And so I'm like, "Okay." So I put my stuff on and hurry up and come over, and he told me, "Look, I know I'm going to draft you. I know a bunch of people are going to tell you that, but I'm going to draft you. I know what I see. I know what I see in you." He said I reminded him of Curtis Martin, which was a running back who I had admired. And so that was a huge compliment. But it started with one person believing, and he was very difficult. He was hard on me that my rookie year. He threatened to cut me probably 10 times. But I think having him that first year to really challenge me, but also knowing that he believed in me, right? Like,
Mm,
hey, you're a small school guy, but you can play in
yep.
this league. Like, I selected you. I stood on the table for you. If it was up to him, he really would have drafted me in the third round instead of fifth.
Uh-huh.
And so it was good to have somebody who challenged me in that way, but also I knew had my back. I knew believed in me. So
Yep.
I would say starting with Coach Carthon, and but then also having teammates. It's the NFL is weird, man, where it's a very cutthroat business and we're all competing for a few roster spots, and we get it.
Right.
Not everyone's going to get paid. Not everyone's going to play past 2, 3, 4, 5 years. And so it's this weird dynamic where it's like we're teammates, but we're also competing against each other. Because when you sign your
Right.
contract, I know there's only a few more dollars left for it. Like somebody's got to go, and
Somebody's going to get left out.
somebody's going to get left out, right? So, which is what you appreciate about the high school and used to be college environment where it's all kind of a neutral setting. But
Right.
I think from the standpoint of just going through that bond with your teammates off the field, like having a common struggle and shared experiences, many of us had similar upbringings and backgrounds.
Right.
And so being able to bounce that off of people when you're trying to figure out how to be a professional, you rely on some of those guys and having sharing, whether it's a chef or an attorney or like just trying to pull resources from people. It's like, hey, we're competing on the field, but how can we like share experiences, resources
Yeah.
off the field? And I was able to find that with a few teammates, and whether that's Beanie Wells, whether that's Larry Fitzgerald, whether that's Edgerrin James, Cooks, that there are a few guys throughout my career who I was able to have that kind of relationship with.
Awesome. So, after nearly a decade in the NFL, you had to face a reality a lot of athletes do, or all athletes do. It's not even a lot. Everyone has to face this reality of life after the game, and that's a
Mhm.
huge transition.
Yeah,
What surprised you most about moving from the world of professional sports into what we call civilian life or normal people life?
man, I think this life, like when you're a professional sportsman, like you're in this bubble, and your one job is to be the best as you can be at this profession, and you obsess about every day taking care of your body and figuring out how to run a certain time or improve your hands or improve your quickness or but you lose sight on like the day-to-day stuff that I remember. I can share this without I remember you coming out one time and a bill wasn't paid and like my paycheck. And it's just like
Yes, I do recall
you
that.
forget, but you figure out like you're insulated from a lot of like real world things that people have to learn as they become young professionals. Because
Right.
either you're just not focusing on it or you're fortunate enough to where you can start to hire people
To do
to
that
kind of
stuff for you.
to do some of that stuff. But then when that goes away, it's like, well, no, you got to do all that, right? Like you got to work with people and you've got to do the grocery shopping and do like you just like everyday stuff that just like you would think is no big deal, but again, you just have been insulated from that. And so it's like almost like readjusting to like what is real life
Yeah.
and real responsibility for somebody who doesn't have like a team of people working for them.
Right. So when you go from high school to college and then college to the NFL, there's no kind of real lifing in that happens for
No,
you. And so
no. The life
when
life
you
happens and you
life is
gotta
still
you gotta
lifing
figure it
and
out.
you're
Yeah.
you're in a different space than everyone else. So I can imagine it was fairly jarring for you initially to make that
for sure.
transition because it was so many things coming at you, so many things that
That's right.
people just assume that you're supposed to be responsible for
That's right.
that you actually really just hadn't had to think about.
You just haven't had to think about it.
So,
And matter of fact, if you're doing your job well, you shouldn't think about it, right? Like if
right.
your that average career is so short, and even going back to high school, the one thing that sports does is provide structure, right?
Right.
Like okay, your classes are pretty much set, and then everything else is work. Your practice set,
You
your
work around
film,
that, work around all those
everything else is
things.
you work around. What do I have left? But there's a
Right.
lot. Most of the hours is kind of planned out. When you can eat, what time you're gonna eat, where you're gonna go. Everything else is like, what are the hours that I fill in between? You have that from high school. For us, was fortunate. Episcopal did a great job of like providing that structure, and then college, and then pro. You extend that right for
Right.
pro, and so now you've literally had from the time you were 16 to for me the time I was 34, so almost 20 years of
Right.
structure, right, and a lot of those things being taken care of. Now all of a sudden it's like, okay, now you've got 3 kids, you're married, you got 3 kids, you've got to create that structure and that framework and learn how to do these things and lead a home and things like that. And it's a learning curve.
It definitely is a learning curve. So I think I mentioned to you before I'm getting my master's, and one of the
Congrats.
books that we've read, thank you, I appreciate that. One of the books that we've read in one of my courses is called Immunity to Change. And this book has really been light bulb moment for me because it talks about how we carry hidden commitments or the beliefs or habits that protect us, but also can hold us back from growing. So when you think about your transition out of football, were there any mindsets or habits you had to let go in order to really move forward?
Yeah, there were a lot. Man, I remember. So the last time, the irony is Maurice Carthon brings me in.
Mhm.
Son, Rand Carthon, is the one who cut me, right?
Oh,
And it
wow.
was talk about a full
Full
circle.
circle
He's
moment.
the one who was calling me and saying, hey, it's time for you
You're
to,
out.
you're out. But I remember, man, after I cried a lot, just kind of mourning that, like I knew it was over, right? It was something internal felt like, hey, this was the end.
Yeah.
Um, but I remember just writing, and I remember writing down a bunch, like the lessons that I wanted to take away from
Yep.
this past like journey. And then I also remember writing like things that I don't want to take into this next season of life. And
Okay.
that one thing that I said I would give myself time is to find what I enjoyed doing again, like give myself space, right? Like you become an expert in something. And it took years, man, it took years and countless hours to become the top less than 1% at this profession.
Yeah.
I'm not just going to shift into that overnight, right? And so like give myself time to grow. It's like that perfectionism that I had in sports. I can't just have that right away, right? Like I found something that I enjoyed doing. So I more so wanted to focus on finding finding things that I cared to devote myself to being
Hmm.
better at, right? And so I was one, but then also not just demanding perfection out of myself, but like those around me. I think the challenging part is whether it's family, like your kids and your wife, kids, colleagues in different environments, there's not that same level of expectation and
Nope.
accountability. And it's like you got to leave that in the locker room, man. Like that, every environment is not. You drop a pass and you're going to get cut the next day.
Right. It's not that level of
It's
intensity.
not that level of intensity. So it's like, how do I create a standard of accountability and for me, but also figure out how to integrate with others where everything is not so cutthroat, it's not so transactional, it's not so like immediate, right?
Yeah, and what people don't understand is that intensity level is sometimes what fuels you, what energizes you,
Yes,
and to like have to take that down a notch and channel that into something else is really hard.
it's extremely difficult.
People don't
Extremely.
quite understand, and they understand like, why can't you just adjust and adapt and like move on? It's like if you've been doing something, your nervous system
That's right.
has that's muscle memory there
That's
in a
right.
way that it's not for everyone else, and so
That's right.
trying to channel that into something that's productive and healthy.
That's
Some
right.
people are successful at it, and some people aren't
That's right.
actually.
The
And so
one other
I,
thing I would say to that is just the consistency, though.
Mhm.
One thing that the lessons is there are times when I look at, well, when did I get myself in trouble? And there are times when it was the consistency, right? Like you're doing something and you're like, okay, I've got great results, but then I have a good game, but then I don't follow through with my routine that
right,
allowed my body to be ready. Or I'm like, oh, I did good, so I can kind of ease off this. But the times where I found success was when I can find small things that I could do consistently, as opposed to like these grand gestures that weren't consistent. And
Right.
so I know for me, that's when I got myself in trouble. And so just trying to take into, like I said, not this extreme, but like, man, just find things that I can be consistent in life. And
The
what are the
little
different
things.
routines the little things that I could count on that allow myself to have a better chance of success long term.
Nice. Was there a moment in your post NFL journey where you hit a wall and had to completely reframe your approach? And if so,
Yeah,
what did you learn about that?
there've been moments when you say hit a wall. What do you mean by hit a wall?
Like, just like, I thought this was the path I was going to go down, and yeah, this actually isn't it. I need to pivot and do something else, or kind of change my mindset, or do something a little bit different.
Yeah, look, that's a great question. There were a few times that I know I enjoy working with kids and like the development aspect of it, right? And so I remember when I first started, I went down this road and I'm kind of building out this consulting business and speaking to all these kids and things like that. And what I quickly found is like there's, I think, being honest with myself around redeveloping a skill set, but also like what space that I enjoy doing this doesn't mean I have to do it for a profession,
True.
right? Like how can I figure out how to do something else that pays a little bit better that I could develop and dedicate time to, and to where now this can be more so a passion project that I'm not beating these schools over the head or these individuals, figuring out like, hey, I've got to take a different path, and or you know what, like this isn't for me, right? Like this career isn't for me. I did some stuff with the company and corporation and that finding out the value didn't quite align. And so it
Hmm.
was more so like kind of trying to line up like what are my values? What are my unique skill sets? How can I be compensated? And then how can I find things that also I have an interest in that for like those passion projects?
Right.
And I think like giving myself time to like kind of figure some of those different things out to where they don't all have to be into one. Like football was
Right. No. Yeah.
paid well. I loved it. Like it's like all into one, but it's like figuring out like you can have a variety of things that you're involved in that sometimes overlap and sometimes they don't.
Sometimes they don't. And so that's a great transition to my next question. So you're on the other side of the game, you're working with an organization instead of playing for one.
Mhm.
The Commanders in particular have been through a massive cultural and organizational transformation in a very short time, which is, I
Yeah,
think, spectacular.
yeah.
From your perspective inside the organization, what has been most crucial to making that shift stick? What have you seen?
Leadership and vision. Look, I'm going to credit Jason Wright, a former teammate of mine, our previous team president, who brought me in, and he saw something different. And while he didn't get us to the kind of the next phase, you had to clean up a lot of mess that was there, and there was just there are a lot of challenges that were there, and kind of restructuring the organization and dealing with some of the things that had taken place in the trust of a fan base while changing a name that people don't like change, right?
No.
And that's something that we knew, and all the data showed it, and it proved to be very true. People don't like it. And so, but you had to go through that phase, that kind of tear down phase,
Right.
right? Like that tear down phase. And then now it takes a strong leader to say, hey, we're going to tear this thing down and rebuild. And people say that, but I just remembered that, man, we colleagues like would come and stay for a few months. Like, I can't take this, or I'd leave after a
Wow.
year max. And there were it was just so much turnover in such a short time. But I thank him for his leadership to be able to stabilize and weather the storm and get us through and keep selling a vision of, hey, whether it was the partners who were left, whether it was some of the retaining some of the new hires of, hey, we're going to get through this someday, right? Like, and here's where we're going, here's what we're building. And so I think it takes leadership in those situations. But then I think I credit the Harris Group, I credit our new team president, I credit just like for seeing like, okay, hey, we're not in crisis mode now. Now, how do we truly build and like accelerate,
Okay.
right? Like, how do we now cast a vision that you talk about stadium, you talk about hiring the right coaching staff and general management, like just all the fan engagement and just, I mean, they're hitting on cylinders. And to do that, you've got to have number one, a vision, but you've got to be able to put the right people in place. And I think that's one thing that Josh Harris does really good job of doing his due diligence, getting the right people in place and allowing them to do their job well. And I think that's why he's been able to have success. And so I would all say it started with leadership, just two different styles and two different seasons and periods of time.
Okay. So you mentioned trust, and I think that's really important and critical when you're making this change. So whether in the locker room or in the front office, how do you see belonging and trust being built or sometimes broken during these times of big change?
Yeah, that's a good question. No, look, I think there are a lot of similarities, and I think it starts with communication, right? Like being able
Yep.
to create a culture where, man, people can speak freely, and whether you're in a meeting and you have differences in opinions and you're challenging ideas, people don't like to be challenged, and
Right.
but a cult like you talk about building trust, like you have to create that culture where. I remember Jason saying one time, and one of my biggest mistakes that I made was, man, there was something that I felt was off of the decision. And I'm like, man, I didn't feel comfortable at the time. I was early on in my professional career on this side.
Mhm.
Saying, no, I don't
This
feel good
isn't
about
right.
it. Right. And I remember him saying, like, hey, man, like, it's not about just the work that you do. Sometimes it's the decisions that we say no to that are equally as important. And so you have to voice it, right? Like, people have to voice it. We've got to pressure test every decision. And by the time we put it out there, a collective of ideas, of challenges, of frustrations, of difficult conversations, and
Right.
hopefully put the best thing out there. But I would say, whether it's in the locker room or whether it's in the boardroom, trust is built through like confrontation and having developing a culture of like healthy confrontation to where we challenge each other, we challenge ideas, but we know there's a shared goal. And so at the end of the day, it's not about you or me. It's about, hey, we're committed to a championship, or we're committed to have the best fan experience, the best business outcome. So I would say number one, a big thing to me is that communication and that culture of like honest dialogue and confrontation.
Yeah, and it really is hard for people. And so, in the academic realm, there's a new phrase that's come up a lot for me called psychological safety. And so,
Mhm.
that means that you are in a space where you feel like, one, if I say something wrong, I'm not going to be ostracized or kind of picked on or made fun of. But two, if I do make a mistake, there's room for that.
That's right.
And
That's
so,
right.
if you feel like you're in a space where you can do that, then you don't mind raising your hand saying, "This doesn't feel quite right," or "I don't agree," because you don't feel like there are repercussions that you can't come back from.
That's right.
And so I think that is super important in any arena, whether it's in sports, in the classroom where teachers make their students feel safe,
That's right.
in organizations where you are kind of mission aligned and have a common goal. You have to be able to be yourself and say the things that are important and not be afraid of the consequences. So I appreciate you sharing that. That was kind of directly in line with kind of where I was going. And so much of what you share connects to themes that go way beyond sports, whether they're talking about schools, companies, or communities. For people in other fields, educators, leaders, anyone navigating a big identity shift, is there some advice you would give people for getting through that messy middle between letting go and stepping into something new? Because, I mean, you've seen it. You saw people like, I can't do this. Like, I got to go. This is too hard for me. What
Yeah.
advice do you give people to kind of stick to it and, like, let's get to the other side?
Yeah, look, my kids who are behind me, I've probably learned more from them than they've learned from me. And one thing, my son, he's got some traits, similar traits to me when it comes to like his emotions and like managing those emotions. And there's one time where he was very angry. He's very angry, and I couldn't get him to release that anger, right? Like I couldn't get him to release that anger. And all I could think about was like I held both my fists
Hmm.
and I tried to give him something, and he couldn't take it because he still had his fist closed. The only way that he was going to be able to receive it is if he opened his hand
Opened.
and let go what was in his hand. And I said, look, I can have this for you, but until you open your hand, I can't give it. And so that's where, when you think about like where you are holding on to, is it more important to hold on to what you have and where you are, or be open to receive what's next? Right. And so that's where I would say it's like, yes, it's important, like that feeling that you're feeling, or that position, that job, that career, whatever that is, like that's important. And it's hard to let go of that. But it's also with that, in that same breath, you won't be able to embrace or even receive the next chapter or the next opportunity if what's important to you is holding on more so to where you've been or what you did or the identity that you had,
Who you were.
who you were, it's hard to kind of embrace the next season if you're holding on to the past season so much.
I love that. That's a great example of what it looks like to be able to embrace change. And so I appreciate that. Talk about a little bit about what you're doing now with the Commanders and what your position really entails.
Yeah, look, so I've been fortunate to be the role as senior director of alumni relations, which all that means is I get the opportunity to work with the former players who laid the foundation for the Burgundy and Gold, right, in this 90+ year franchise, from the Sonny Jurgensens to the Art Monks to Daryl Green to the guys who just finished a year or two ago, and help them reconnect them to the organization, help them kind of transition out the game, and just help us as an organization build a culture that celebrates legacy. Right. And so that's what the day-to-day is, and figuring out ways to keep those guys connected, but also keep, as we went through this name change, how do we tie that legacy and that heritage to this new era of the Commanders, right? And so that's what my day-to-day focuses on.
Awesome. So what practices or people keep you grounded now as you continue to evolve?
What practices or people keep me grounded? Man. Look, I'll say from a work capacity, I think Doug Williams is part of what I have is one thing they say you can't buy is perspective. And having the opportunity to talk to the Doug Williams and the Daryl Greens and some of the people who have been in this game and just lived life, who are in their 60s, 70s, and some even 80s, like their perspective beyond just football, like life, right? Growing up in the civil rights era and before then, and seeing just like being able to run and bounce things off those guys. They've transitioned out of the game and they're now fathers, and some of them are entrepreneurs and business people. And so I would say having healthy conversations with people who are older than me, who are my senior, who can share life perspective. Because sometimes when you're going through things as a first-time dad or navigating relationships or work or whatever that is, you don't have that perspective. So everything feels so big, right? And like, everything feels like monumental, and it's like, man, am I messing this up, or am I giving my kids complexes for the rest of the life? Like, you don't know. You're trying to do it the best you can.
Right.
So it's helpful to have people who have been there, who have messed up, who have succeeded, to say, hey, you're okay here.
You're okay.
You may want to lean in a little bit more, or like to have some of those. And then I would say like finding things that, like trying to find things that I enjoy, right? I'm starting to run and
I wanted to talk to you
travel a
about
little
that.
bit and just trying to find things. I think for me, I love spending time with the kids and things like that, but like trying to re-identify who I am in this season of life and embracing, just trying different things helps me to understand like there are things that you suck at and it's okay. And there are things that other people are struggling at and that's okay too. But that kind of, I guess, provides the human element of just like everything's not always intense and high performance.
Right.
Yeah.
So I mentioned that you wrote a book. We haven't really talked about that. Talk about why you decided that was important for you and what you wanted people to take away from the book that you wrote.
Yeah, that was such a process, and I'm thankful for that process. I don't even know what it sold or didn't sell, and I really, quite honestly, don't care. But I think one thing, when I was going through those 3.5 years of not playing, every single day I watched a video, I listened to a YouTube video, I read a book. I consumed so much to just give me hope and inspiration. I would literally watch. I remember sitting in the hospital and I couldn't run or anything, so I just had my cleats on. I put my cleats, and I just try to imagine myself like getting back out there one day. And I literally just read people's stories of adversity, of people who overcame just insurmountable odds, and I was inspired by those. And so for me, it was like, at first I almost had to talk myself out of it, of like, okay, well, do I even have a story worth reading? And I still have so much to accomplish and achieve. And number one, it was like, no, you've got a sense of responsibility. If one or two people read and it helps them through something that they're going through in life, it's our responsibility to share stories, right?
Yep.
And what people do with them is up to them. And then too, it was just having those conversations with people. You see the similarities that, who cares if you're an athlete or not, overcoming. And the book actually it was called Never Give Up. And that seemed very cliche. And I remember having a conversation with a good friend of mine, and there was a question around, like 4 different things she was experiencing. She's like, how do I know which one is worth fighting for? And that just kind of clicked. That was like the overarching conversation that people were navigating and wrestling with. What are those things that are worth fighting for in our life? Because we can't fight for everything, but there are some things that we should fight for and we should pursue, relationships or career endeavors. And so why for me was this thing worth fighting for? And then what were the lessons learned that I could share that more so translated to everyday experience for people as opposed to just sports?
Awesome. And so are you still doing speaking engagements? Are you still getting out there? I know you've got the flag football league going on. What else are you kind of tinkering with these days?
Starting to. The priority is at least 4 kids, getting them stabilized and making sure that I'm between I try to be nice and kind and this whole gentle parenting with this thing. I try it. I don't know if it always works well on me. I'm still a little old school and I believe it's good discipline, but I go back and forth. So my main priority is stabilizing these kids and making sure that they're prepared to live life. But now starting to get into, I do enjoy connecting with people and speaking and sharing and hearing. And yes, the Flag Football League was an opportunity. It was kind of like the best of both worlds where I can combine. I love business, I love sports, and I love the development of kids. And so it was like this perfect world where, man, I could create something, not just for my kids, but help them build community through a game that I loved. And it's a viable business, right? And so it was a perfect world where they all aligned. So staying in the youth sports area for a little bit and
Okay.
we'll see where that goes.
Awesome. Well, I don't want to take up too much of your time. I appreciate you joining us today. I do want to end with a quick lightning round. So some
Oh, man.
questions for fun. So
Let's
I'm
do
going to
it.
ask you a couple of questions and I'm actually curious to see how you'll answer these. So
Let's
first
do it.
one, who is the toughest player you ever had to go up against?
I'll say 2. Patrick Willis and Navarro Bowman, 49ers linebackers. They were as good as they come.
Okay. Awesome. What's your go-to hype song before a big moment?
Man, that shifted. Look, I can remember I was telling my kids the other day, it's supposed to be lightning. It used to be 50 Cent, I Get Money.
Okay.
It's a little more mellow these days. So I gotta say, depending on, let me see, what's go to. You did say hype. Go to hype.
Yeah, you
Something
can't be
Jay-Z.
mellow. You
Something
gotta.
Jay-Z. Anything Jay-Z. I'm classic Jay-Z all day long.
Gotcha. All right. And last, if you could have dinner with 3 people, living or dead, who's at the table?
3 people living and dead. Man. Wow. I would probably say the first Hightower, wherever that, I don't know who gave the name, or the oldest, the trace of my lineage back as far
As
we
far as you
go.
can go. Got it.
Whoever that
Okay.
patriarch is, I'd love to have a conversation with him.
Okay.
Maybe Malcolm X.
Mm-hmm.
And then maybe Jesus.
Okay.
Yeah. Weird combination, but yeah.
Oh, but hey, it's your table, right?
A little culture, all over.
All right. Lastly, how is the running going? I know you've got this goal of the 6-minute mile. So where are we? How's it going?
It's going. I'm in the sixes.
Okay.
So we're definitely trending down. It's a different challenge. I really am enjoying this challenge, and so it's going. I've got a time trial again tomorrow. I test every 2 weeks, so I've got a time trial tomorrow. The last one I went down 20 plus seconds. So we'll see. We just keep getting out there and getting the volume in, and
That's right. Consistency. You'll
there
be
you
there
go.
before you
That's it.
know it.
There
You
you go.
got it. I'm not even worried. Tim, thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate it and really so excited for what you have to come and the things that you've already done. So keep doing what you're doing. Keep us posted. Keep getting those kids engaged in the flag football and doing all the things. Thanks for pulling up a chair today at the table. I hope this conversation gave you something to think about or maybe even something to try out in your own community. If you're enjoying the table, don't forget to subscribe, like, share it with a friend, or leave us a comment. It really helps more people find us. And as always, take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and we'll see you next time at the table. Have a good one.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of the Table Podcast Series. Is your student life program delivering on your mission? Our new K-12 student life assessment moves you beyond anecdotes to evidence-based decisions. Through comprehensive stakeholder surveys and expert analysis, you'll get concrete insights across 8 essential dimensions of student life, from culture and wellness to staff effectiveness and resource allocation. We're seeking founding partner schools to be the first to experience this transformative assessment process and help shape the future of student life evaluation. Today's episode was hosted by Bridget Johnson in conversation with Tim Hightower, produced and edited by Andrick Sigmund, and music by PremiumBeat.com. For any questions, contact information can be found in the episode description, and as always, thanks again for listening.